Hey, welcome to Your Best Podcast, your place for conversation, information, and experts to help you experience your next best. Today, we have Dorota Kuldo, who is a coach, and we're going to be talking about the power of decluttering. And so, hey, you want this, you need this. I've wanted this, and I sometimes still need it. So welcome, Dorota. It's so nice to have you here today because this is such a powerful topic. So thank you for joining. My first question for you is, what is clutter to you? Because we all have a different feeling about this. So what is clutter to you?
Right off the bat, the most amazing question, because that's what you said. Exactly that, we all have a different perception of what it is. So to me, clutter is everything that is out of place, that is no longer needed. So even if it's like rubbish or just things misplaced, that I consider that clutter. If it's things that, like my attic is filled with stuff, for example, right? Hypothetical situation. That's also, I consider that clutter. So anything and everything that is out of place, if it's in where it belongs, where it lives in my house, that's not clutter. Everything else, mess, also clutter.
I like this. Now, have you always been someone who has been orderly and neat, or is this something that you learned over time?
Unfortunately, yes and no. I always loved clear and nice, clean spaces. So I always lived in those two stages, right? There was never like in between, or at least like I never noticed the in between. So my space was either super clean and organized after I just spent 5 hours on the room, right? Or extremely messy. So the in between never existed in my head. And actually, like, the main reason why I decluttered was because it got to the point where, because of the job that I had, 2 full-time jobs, pandemic, so it was really unstable time, and my home became, how do I put it in a nice way? A trash can, a war zone. Yeah. So because I didn't have a capacity, mental or energy either, to do anything. So for months, it would just go really, really bad.
Are you an entrepreneur, creative, or leader, and you're facing tough decisions, challenging transitions, or burnout? My Transformation Through Joy method is here for you. You don't have to do it alone. Learn and implement the method quickly through private coaching flexible to your busy schedule. Learn more at teemaree.com. That's TEEMAREE.com. I really like how you're describing the different potentials and the different stages for this. So for me, I have always loved order and I love cleanliness. I've always been that way. And actually, it's gotten into where I'm like, oh, well, am I just overboard? Clean gives me calm, and negative space makes me feel expansive and vibrant and able to have ideas, and it makes me feel luxurious and beautiful. So even if a space doesn't have a lot of luxurious, expensive items, if it is clean and presented well, I feel so good. I just love it, right?
Yeah.
However, as I've gone on with my coaching business, with my entrepreneurial journey, and these stages of life that you mentioned, where now things, maybe I want to put more focus and don't have as much time to clean. And I also experimented. I'm like, well, maybe am I just too uptight about this? And can I just be more loose, right? So I like that you're describing the different potentials we can experience in clutter, non-clutter, regardless of where we start. Because I know for me, when I started to try to be more loose with this, it wasn't good for me. I've struck a balance between, I don't have to clean everything all the time right away, but I still do have my normal that I like. And it can turn into, like you describe, a war zone, just everything is everywhere because now your focus has changed. And the reason why I think it's important for listeners or watchers, viewers to know this is because sometimes I think we feel that, oh, I've heard people say I'm just a pack rat. I'm just a collector. I'm just too busy. And some people feel like, well, I'm just a clean person. That's just how I am. And I think there's varying stages of this. And so I'm glad that you've experienced this too, especially being a professional in this area. So when you were in this war zone, in this time of like, wow, things are really cluttered for you, what was an approach you took to begin? I guess it's a two-part, to begin your awareness and then to begin actually doing something about the space.
The first that I want to say here is that you mentioned experimenting. And I think this is quite important to notice that we often have this perception of like a standard, right? What it should be.
Right.
And we feel weird because it's sort of always a part of our identity as well, right? I am, you mentioned, right? I am this person, right? I am messy. I am, my thoughts at the time were, I am disgusting. I am gross. I am useless because I cannot keep my house clean. Like I've always been able to in stages. But like at this time, it was like 2020, and it was bad. Like I worked 15 hours a day. So, I didn't have time, did I? Right? 6 days a week. Right. So the moment that when it all sort of changed for me, it's actually a very funny story because, it wasn't something that like an obvious thing that you would think like another pile or I injured myself or whatever. Right. Although that happened as well. I did injure myself a few times when I like walked into a dumbbell, for example, at 2 a.m. at night when I was like on my way from the bathroom. But what happened to me was actually a dead plant. That was like my enough is enough moment, right? So of course I overwatered this thing. And it was probably like there hanging in the macram for like a few weeks, dead already. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to like throw this thing away, right? So I grabbed it and water just went everywhere, right? All over me, all over the bed, just literally everywhere, right? On the windowsill, everywhere. And I was just like, I just stood there thinking, this is my life. Like that's what my life is now, messy, disorganized, dirty. I just wanted to cry at that moment, but it was also in the same time a very powerful moment because I realized that we always have two paths, right? We can either go right towards change, or we can either go left and do whatever we've been doing so far. So this first time I really powerfully, like it was just such a powerful moment. I decided, no, I'm going right and I'm trying new things, figure out new things. So I research. I'm very resourceful. Like the background in corporate world does that to you, right? Very resourceful. So I watched everything. I read the books, checklist, and all of that, and sort of slowly. I started moving out of that mess.
See, that's great because I was about to ask you, and I feel like we're getting to it now. Was this the introduction into what has become now your life's work with helping people declutter? Was it at this time in your own life and saying, hey, I'm going to make these changes, and that's what kicked it off for you?
It was two parts of that, when that sort of happened, that realization. But immediately after that plant situation, I remember sitting at the edge of my bed and thinking, I get it now. Like I know why people cannot move forward, right? Because I couldn't. It was like months and months and months. Like, I wasn't really struggling with clutter for like decades, having like just paths, but few months was enough for me to, when I was like in the worst of that clutter, right? My whole life was there, like in cycles, but definitely this like few months of pandemic when that got really, really bad. But also the second part of that was the world was shut down, and I've only just learned about online education, right?
Mm-hmm,
What
mm-hmm.
online education is and what it can do.
Yes.
Like I knew sort of it, but I was never like a part of. I've never like purchased any courses. I did download it, some checklists and things like that, but then my world opened up massively, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can help people. And at the beginning, my intention was, I'm just gonna inspire.
Sure.
And that sort of lasted for like a year or two, maybe. And then I realized actually there was a method that I developed throughout decluttering, which I didn't really realize at the time. That was so powerful that, I decided, okay, I think I have something here. I think I can impact people in a different way rather than just inspiring, because inspiration doesn't really take people far.
It's so great. It's so great because so as a coach myself, right? As a life, health, and spiritual coach, I love this so much. I love personal growth. I love personal development, transformation. And so I walk this walk myself. I love these modalities and I love these opportunities to maybe better ourselves or achieve a goal faster or even soothe and heal a portion of ourselves so we can feel at peace, And so when it comes to decluttering, I don't help in that arena, but I have personally experienced it for various things, even someone that does like order and does like cleanliness, right? And that is kind of like my natural setting. It was surprising to me. Tell me if you have clients or you personally can relate.
Mm-hmm.
So, ever since I was little, my grandmother, she would give things to people. She would donate. And so I have this spirit of donation and like passing forward things because I also know how good it feels to get something, and you're just like, oh, cool. So I never thought that I was attached to things. And little did I learn that there are attachments.
Oh boy.
There are attachments. I discovered it first when we were downsizing in a major way. And this was moving toward, I had a desire to live tiny. And so we were, selling and getting rid of. And there were a few items that I felt very attached to. And it was surprising to me. And, here as we're talking about the power of decluttering, one thing I can say is that when I realized that I had those attachments and was able to work through those things, I felt so, and to this day, it's something that I am like, I don't need. And there's something so cool about being able to say, I don't need. Please share your experience with that phase of it.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so powerful. That last sentence, I don't need. I think that's sort of the goal, right, of decluttering. Quickly right off the bat, I want to say that we will be decluttering until our last day on earth, right? So I want to like just burst that bubble for everyone straight away, because when people come to me, whether it's, in Instagram or like my private clients, it's always like, okay, I want to be done by, right? And they have this like imaginary date, right? That creates pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I work with nervous system regulation. That is my number one tool for decluttering, right? Because without this, that's like the missing piece for everyone anyway. But here's the thing, right? That pressure of having to declutter by end of the year or summer or whatever, right? It's hard on us. Like there is this shame spiral, because what if you don't do that, right? If you don't manage to do it by certain day. But why we will be always decluttering is because we always bring stuff in, right?
Yes.
We change, the seasons change, what we like change, what we don't like change, right? So permission right away here, permission to take forever, because that's what's going to take. And it's not a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you will be decluttering once you do the backlog. That's what I like to call it, right? So all this like things that right now is like way too much for a person, then you'll be just decluttering. It's like maintenance decluttering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about the attachment, right, we all have attachment to stuff, right? We buy things because it's emotional, right? We make decisions, then we justify with logic to buy stuff, but it's always an emotional decision. Whether you know whether it's something that we bought or we got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We kept it because of a emotion, right? So yes, the attachment is the big thing, right? And people always ask me, right? Like, how do I get rid of those such a strong emotional attachment to?
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, why? Why do you want to get rid of it? Like, what's the actual reason, apart from you thinking that maybe you should, right? Which is always the worst idea, because should creates such a judgment
Mm-hmm.
and comparison, or maybe because, there is a trend going on, everyone's decluttering, so I should be decluttering as well. And then we feel like failure because we cannot get rid of like the baby blanket, right?
Right.
But if you want to keep it, like there's no rules. So with the attachment, I always say just keep it. If it's hard to make a decision, life is already hard as it is, right? 2025, it's not an easy year. So make it easier on yourself for sure.
Yeah, the attachment was an interesting thing to discover, and that is very sound. I love what you're sharing about it being a continual experience, because it absolutely is. In the case of my initial experience where I discovered that attachment, certainly I was working towards a very real goal. We were going to downsize. So I knew that many things were just not going to fit in our new tiny home. And so, yes, there was a timeline associated with it. But you gave some advice there, because it is absolutely true. In my case, one of the things that I was attached to was my iMac computer. So this is the desktop iMac computer, large screen. I still love you, baby, wherever you are. And it was emotional to me because my husband had given it to me, and I remembered how he had given it to me. It was a source of great joy because it allowed me to do my work. And it was also, many years prior to that, I remember I used to envision a time in which I would be able to afford Apple products and have Apple products, an Apple suite of products. So for me, there was also this thing of like, I had it, And here we were going into our tiny spot, and there was just no place for this giant computer. And I was even rationalizing in my mind of like, well, maybe we could kind of use it like as a monitor in this one space and view things on it. And even if we're not using it as a computer. But I like the advice you gave, because I know for me with that instance, it was really, really difficult, even though I had a timeline, even though all the things, to force myself. So I would keep putting it on the back burner, just decide other things now first. Back burner, just decide. And I let myself entertain the potential idea of trying to use it in another application in the small place. And what worked for me, and everyone is different, was that once it really came down and I was doing other things first and letting myself marinate in all the things I could maybe do with this computer, I was able to finally come to where it's like, okay, now like, honestly, this doesn't fit and I'm okay. Right. And so I was able to let that go, and everyone is different and has their own trajectory. But I love how you say this, because speaking on your point of it is an ongoing process, right? I did this, and like I said, I have an ongoing experience of being able to get rid of things. We go into the tiny home, Dorota, and guess what I went and did? Suddenly, there came a point where I discovered I had purchased so many decorative pillows. What
haven't we all?
And so now I had, again, things I had to. So I love that you say this is ongoing. This is very powerful for anyone who may feel, whether they feel like they don't, and I don't want to call it an issue. It's not an issue. It's an experience, right?
Mm,
Whether they have an experience of, oh, I don't, I can easily kind of get rid and declutter, or I have a hard time. Actually, it's an ongoing process because
yeah.
you're absolutely right. Things come in and out all the time. Now, I've experienced decluttering for many different reasons. What are some of the reasons that you have decluttered things? What are some of the reasons that have caused you to do that? Do you do it in different seasons of your life? Speak a little bit about that.
Oh, you know what? Can I just say like how important what you shared about that your Mac experience is? Because I think a lot of women are going to see themselves in this. And I just want to say there is like a huge grieving process involved as well. In letting go of things. So permission to even cry or like break down or whatever, right? If you feel like this is going to like release those emotions, right?
Mhm.
But my story was a little bit similar because when I started decluttering, I actually started, I mean, don't laugh, but I started with 1 minute a day. That's all I
Mhm.
did. I did not have time. I worked 15 hours a day, right? But what I had was the will. That's
Yes.
what I had. And that was like, even now I get goosebumps thinking about it because when you make a decision, right, that I'm ready, I have decided, that's the most powerful sentence that you can say, right? I have decided, I'm doing it, right? And so for me, I also in the same time was decided that I wanted to move back home. So I lived in England at a time for a very long time. So I had loads and loads of possessions, like loads. I managed to declutter 70% of it because here's the thing, right? I I figured out, well, I checked more like how much it would cost me to move all that crap, right,
Yes.
overseas. So I was like, I don't have £10,000, right?
Mhm.
That's like, I don't have that money. Like just to move the stuff that half of it I kept of guilt or just because, emotionally shopping. I was a huge shopaholic, huge people pleaser. So that was sort of like my motivation as well, right? I need to
Mhm.
downsize here. I only can take a certain amount of things with me, right? So having that deadline, like I had a date set, was also working.
Mhm.
But it's a different, when you have a concrete deadline that is, you either moving houses or you moving countries or you want to downsize, that deadline becomes motivation, right? But if
Yeah.
you only set the deadline for yourself, you sort of pull it out from a thin air. I would avoid that. I would just suggest to people, okay, just take it day by day. So decluttering really, like for me right now, because I have decluttered so much already, right now is more to the point of like I open the drawer and if I feel like then I go through the stuff and I just take some stuff out that I outgrown or things that I don't like anymore. It's easier, right? Because when you reach that point, going sort of back to beginning what you said about I don't need it, right?
Yes.
That's a very powerful place to be. But I wouldn't expect myself to be in that spot like on day one, right?
No.
Um, because if we expect ourselves to be able to easily let go of things and then we break down over a broken plastic fork, then there is too much shame involved, there is too much judgment, too much comparison. Our nervous system at that point is fried completely. So always focus on regulation nervous system first and then do things that you want in your home, right? Declutter, clean up, or whatever, right? But that nervous system regulation, it has to be first.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I love that. I love that. I love that. For me, I have experienced, like I said, I don't coach on decluttering. But I've experienced it in my own, personal growth journey, which I'm always on. I just love this work so much. And so I've experienced it for various reasons. One
Mhm.
was a downside, so it was a practical reason. So that's one thing. Another was then I started to experience a sensation of freedom, right? Because now when I was like, I don't need. So, and I had downsized. So practically speaking, you had to surround yourself with things that brought you joy because you don't have a lot of empty corners. The space is small. And that was very exciting, right? And having that sort of limit, right? That space
Mhm.
limit was very exciting. Now, I still found a way with the decorative pillows to still, right, maybe buy more than we needed, and then I had to give away. However, I've also found this work to be very powerful when it comes to finances
Oh, yes.
and when it comes to like a self worth and a freedom thing. Can you
Yes.
please speak to this because it's powerful stuff?
Oh my gosh, like I have goosebumps literally. Decluttering is going to change your life, period.
Hmm.
Okay. So, oh my gosh, I have so much to say on this. Going back to sort of, my story just a little bit. Like I said, I was a shopaholic. So
Hmm.
financially, money was never there, right?
Right.
Well, I thought money was never there because I was just spending left, right, center, right? To make
Hmm.
myself feel better, for whatever reason. Then, huge people pleaser. Oh my gosh, the level of people pleasing that I indulge in, for the lack of better word, it was huge. And then when I started decluttering, right, it's literally like a self development on crack, right? Because here's what's happening: this power. Why? Because you start trusting yourself. Right?
Hmm.
When you start getting rid of things, right? And what happens is like no one comes and shouts at you, right? The piano didn't drop from the sky and killed you, right? The tornado didn't like swallow you whole, like nothing happened, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So then you become more brave, right? So that confidence is like all my clients always say, they always come to me and their self-esteem is always like in the gutter. Mine was as well.
Hmm.
But on the other side of the program, they always say, I feel on top of the world. Why? Because they make the decisions and they feel good because they
Hmm.
notice it's not only that stuff disappears from the house, right? That's sort of like a side effect, right? It's the main reason is that they feel internally like a changed person. The more decisions they make, so for me, going back to the people pleasing, right? When I started decluttering 2 years in, um, I met this guy, right? And my
Hmm.
whole life, I was dating always like five versions of the same narcissist, right? And they just different face, different name, but everything was, similar. And I remember when we were going out and he messaged me something about like we were setting up for a date or like whatever. And I messaged him and I was like, my hands were shaking, right? But Clutter gave me that confidence because I noticed that I could set boundaries with stuff. So I was like, oh, where else can I set those boundaries, right? So I messaged him saying, you picked a date. No, you picked a place or something like that. And he said, okay, I'll pick you up at 7. And I'm like, what?
Hmm.
I didn't have to like, he didn't message me back saying, no, you have to choose, you have to pick me up, you have to drive me, because I was that person. I was like, the chauffeur.
Sure.
Um, so that's such a powerful thing. The more confidence I got, the easier it was to get rid of things. The easier it was to set boundaries with people, with my boss. All of a sudden, I had more money because I
Hmm.
wasn't spending money.
Yep.
I had money that I never thought I had, actually. And the other thing is I actually found like $1,000 stashed around my room.
So awesome. I love when that happens.
Yeah. It wasn't like in one place, but because, I was moving countries. So this 1,000 was like, like another light bulb, like how much energy and time and just everything that I wasted on this thing, right? This clutter, having all of this. So 1,000%, you change. Decluttering is just like a tool to change your life, right? And I dare you to try, basically, to the listeners, right? I dare you to try. Your life will be forever changed.
Yes, yes, indeed. The power of decluttering is really real. It is a freeing experience. It is an empowering experience. It is an emotional experience. And all of that is okay. And it's absolutely an ongoing experience as we continue to have visions of who we want to be or how we want to look, or even just that joy of wanting new things, then yeah, the potential is to, again, maybe bring up the supply of something you have in one area. But ultimately, once you realize that you can make those decisions, that you aren't really tied to anything that is material, it is absolutely life-changing, and it is very, very powerful and has many, many powerful effects. I've loved this conversation with you, and I appreciate how real and grounded and how caring you are with this wonderful work of decluttering. Now, tell me, before we wrap, what is your best piece of advice for someone who is considering trying to declutter, but they're just not sure yet?
Okay, I'm going to shock you here. Okay, this is my favorite thing. So my number one piece of advice is burn the rule book, right? There is no rules, okay? There's literally no rules. There are tips and tricks that you can do, but having a set of rules that you declutter by is always going to trip up your nervous system. It's always going to produce a very temporary result. What we want is a life-changing thing, right? And that's it, right? Burn the rule book. And it's not that serious, because it's not. Like, we make decluttering this huge serious task, like very masculine energy, right? But decluttering is very feminine. It's like flowy. And the better you feel, the easier it's going to be to declutter, right? So how can you make yourself feel better? Put the music on, go for a walk, put your face in the sun, spend time with your dog or your cat or whatever animal you have. And only once you do those things, then go and try, declutter a little bit. You'll see how huge of a difference that's going to make.
Oh, that's so, so good. So good. Now, of course, we'll have all the information in the show description, but where can folks connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram under Dorota Kuldo Decluttering. So that's DOROTAKULDO Decluttering. I'm also on Facebook. If you type in my name and last name, Dorota Kuldo, you'll find me there. But mainly on Instagram.
Yes. Okay. And so I don't know if you feel comfortable, but I know you usually do on social media. So should we give a little dance out? A little seated dance out?
Oh my God. Yes, let's do it.
Yes. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Your Best Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and even give us a review. And hey, don't forget, there are plenty of resources in the show notes for you. See you in the next episode. Woohoo!